Do you remember when you were growing up and you got into something with your parents because they wanted you to do something horrible, like take a bath, or go to bed, or of all things, go to school every day? Oh my gosh! And you thought, just you wait. And you thought, if I was a parent, I wouldn't do any of that. The truth is, parenting is one of those things that we really have no concept of until you get into the job. And it is wonderful, and it is loving and close and intimate at times, and it is also terrifying and baffling and difficult at other times. And we just kind of learn as we go and do our best. Part of the terrifying part is that we have this incredible power that comes with responsibility. We have the ability to either bless or curse in an instant. And it's an awesome responsibility. When a glass of milk is spilled at the table, when ballpoint pen ink somehow ends up on the new couch, when a new outfit is ripped or stained, when a curfew is broken, when a lie is caught, when a trust is betrayed. In all these cases, we can tear apart or we can tear down our children. Or, while not saying that a right is wrong, we can show understanding, forgiveness, and compassion, grace, if you will. And how we react, you see, is not so much dependent on our children's actions or reactions, as much as it is on our own character, on how forgiving and understanding and caring that we decide to be, how grace-filled we are. So it is with us, so it is also with God. Don't be deceived. God has the authority to bless or curse, to judge. As we said earlier in our service, we are guilty, as we say each week, of things done and left undone. We are under God's judgment for our actions, our thoughts, our words. That's something to be taken seriously. But you see, how God relates to us is not dependent on our actions or reactions as much as it is on God's character, on how forgiving, how understanding and caring God is, on God's gracious nature. That gracious nature is at the core of Luther's faith and the core of his Reformation message. Luther, if you know anything about him, you know that he was a dedicated monk. His father wanted him to be a lawyer, but instead he decided to be a monk, to devote all his life, all his energy towards religious participation. But it didn't bring him satisfaction. Then he became a student, and then he became a teacher, but none of these righteous activities brought him satisfaction. And one of the things that he became increasingly disturbed about was that the church that he was a part of was selling this grace. They were selling little pieces of paper that would essentially get your dead relatives out of jail, out of the jail of purgatory. They were called indulgences. And Luther couldn't believe this. So on the eve of All Saints' Day, October 31st, 1517, we have 500 years next year. On the eve of this All Saints' Day, Martin Luther, as was his custom, he posted a notice of academic debate on indulgences on the castle door at Wittenberg, which was sort of the community's bulletin board. Usually notices of academic debate don't get a whole lot of attention. But Luther listed 95 arguments or theses, and they were so well written at a time that the printing press had just been invented and was popularized, that they were copied and they were circulated, and they directly challenged the authority of the church. The issue was this: does the church have the authority to free an individual from the judgment of God, to relieve someone of any penalty that they must pay before God. Can the church offer forgiveness, this indulgence, if somebody pays, either with money or religious discipline, like fasting or prayer or giving to charity? Luther and the other reformers said, no, you can't pay for that forgiveness, not with time or money or even good intentions. And as hard as he had personally tried, Luther saw that it was not humanly possible to become right or righteous before God in and of his own abilities. Now, in this big document that they put out, the Augsburg Confession, they argued that people are freely justified for Christ's sake through faith when they believe that they are received into favor and that their sins are forgiven on account of Christ. It's through Christ. They go on to say, who alone has been ordained to be the mediator and propitiation, it's a fancy word for means, the means through which you and the Father are reconciled. The reformers, in this emphasis of faith over works, they wanted to shift the focus of the church's theology from human actions, our works, to God's action, to grace offered through the saving death of Jesus Christ. But Luther argued also that it's impossible for sinful human beings under their own power to even achieve this faith. That faith itself, he reasoned, is a free gift, the work of God's Spirit, because of God's grace, God's undeserved love and goodness toward us all. That is what grace is, God's undeserved love and goodness that is given to us because of God's character. We talk a lot about it, but here's the thing. I'm not so sure we believe it. Brendan Manning states in his book, The Ragamuffin Gospel, the American church today accepts grace in theory, but denies it in practice. We don't in our hearts believe that it's really true. We live in a culture filled with these slogans. There's no free lunch. You get what you deserved. You want money? You work for it. You want love? You earn it. You want mercy? Well, then you better show that you deserve it. Do unto others before they do it unto you. And by all means, give others what they deserve, but not a penny more. We have responsibility over our own lives, and other people should do the same. Now, that attitude is fine until it's not fine, until it breaks down, until our bodies quit working or grow tumors, until fire comes and destroys our home, or economics take our job away, or our relationships break down. Then we realize how fragile our control is, how our whole sense of self-dependence is really an illusion. It's not reality. What do we trust in? Our own works, our power and control, or something larger? Our God, the grace of God. For grace to become a reality for us, I think many times we have to hit bottom. We have to come to a crisis. Theologian Paul Tillich, in his famous work, Shaking the Foundation, he wrote this about grace. He said, grace strikes us when we are in great pain and restlessness. It strikes us when we walk through the dark valley of a meaningless and empty life. It strikes us when year after year the longed-for perfection does not appear, when the old compulsions reign within us as they have for decades, when despair destroys all joy and courage. Sometimes at that moment, a wave of light breaks into our darkness. It's as though a voice were saying, you are accepted. You are accepted, accepted by that which is greater than you, and the name by which you do not know. Do not ask for that name now. Perhaps you will find it later. Do not try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek for anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you are accepted. If that happens to us, then we experience grace. That's Tillich. Brilliant. If there's anything the Christian